ladies and gentlemen, we are taking further some of the issues that have been discussed in the earlier sessions. And I'm very glad that today we are focusing mostly on the future, not as much as on the present, because I think the future is at our doorstep and things are going to change. And things are changing within our workplaces in such a speedy fashion. So we have to discuss the topic, the productivity debate, getting the best from your workforce. We have Mr. Balaji from TVS Supply Chain Solutions, Mr. Arun Leslie George from Coromandel. We have Bharathan Prahlad from MSys Technologies and Mr. Padmakumar from Saint Gobain in India. We have a good mix of executives ranging from manufacturing to logistics to IT. So let me start off just touching upon a very broad area. Productivity is something that has been of a discussion for a long time. How productive are we in our work, our own workplaces? Recently, you might remember Mr. Narayana Murthy, co-founder of Infosys, talking about the need to put in 70 hours of work in a week, which he said is very important because especially since a lot of professionals get a lot of benefits from the government and you really owe it to the government that you need to put in this kind of work, etc., etc. There is a wide-ranging view on this. So I'd like to know from these executives who have got several decades of experience as to how they view productivity, what are the emerging trends around managing employee productivity. It's not going to be easy, I know. I think you guys do one of the toughest jobs probably when it comes to ensuring productivity. And let me take it off with Mr. Balaji, who has been Chief Executive Officer before of Mafoy Consultants, which is a very large manpower consulting firm, and he's presently the global CHR of TVS Supply Chain. So, Mr. Balaji, let us start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Arun, for the opportunity. I think you kind of started off with an important comment and also maybe a controversial comment on this 70 hours of work. I think as the world is at one level saying about 4 days of working, some of you would have seen Greece has announced yesterday, day before, 6 days a week. Right? So you have both the spectrums are there. So there's already a debate. Is a 4 days week is good or a 6 days week is good? And productivity debate is going to be something, it will be an ongoing debate. I think the way I come from a supply chain, a logistics business, which at one level is very people intensive, another level is a very technology intensive business. The company I represent have workforce in India. We also have workforce in US, UK and in other markets. And I think we need to look at some of these country nuances when we are looking at productivity. Productivity has many facets, employee well-being, impact from learning and development initiatives, the impact of technology on productivity. All these are very important pillars when you think about productivity. And I think of late we are also seeing a debate on, as companies are getting focused on productivity, there is also concern on privacy, which is kind of coming up quite sharply in terms of monitoring, what you can monitor, what you can't monitor, because some of you will know supply chain industry is a very time-critical business, time-sensitive, time-critical business. We have a number of productivity measures, by which we kind of, examine how productive our workforce are. But I think increasingly I see a focus in our Western markets, and I'm sure it will come into Indian markets as well, about, what is a boundary line, and privacy concerns, and, when increasing use of technology. I think we have been hearing about artificial intelligence, drone, machine learning, monitoring, etc. I would kind of start the conversation saying, as there's a fine balance to be achieved between productivity, employee well-being, and with a sharp focus on privacy concerns. That's my opening comments, Arun.
Okay, great. Let us have Mr. Arun Leslie George. Mr. George, what are some of the industry-specific, challenges that you find in the area of productivity when it comes to your field of work?
Okay, one of the things which today we have is huge amount of it is data and information. So we have loads of information, and with loads of information comes loads of analytics. And to review these analytics, we have these loads of meetings, we have several meetings and longer meetings. End of the day, what I see is as the number of time spent on reviewing work is getting longer, the actual work actually shrinks, okay, and actual productivity comes down. And when you have long meetings, you're telling your people that I don't trust you, that I don't know, I don't think you can do everything. We need to tell you every little detail. Okay, so that's the challenge we face. When I was heading the retail business, we had some 14 of tasks for every individual, and on an average, the review would go about 150 metrics were there, and nothing. I mean, people and the business was tanking. One of the first things I said is let's reduce it to just 3. So I just said it: profitability, customer advocacy, and compliance. I get 50%, 30%, and I gave specific measures: profitability, net promoter score, and my audit. Period. That's it. And meetings were just a few minutes over. I think it's important that in this world of information, we should know where to focus on. It's important to choose where to put your time and energy, where to focus your attention of yourself and your people on. Otherwise, we can get carried away with all these little numbers.
That's a great statement. In fact, Mr. Narayanamurthy himself later clarified on his statement, saying that the number of hours doesn't really count. It really matters how you focus and what kind of productivity you derive from it. Let me bring in Mr. Bharathan Prahlad as to in his areas of operations, how he views the productivity angle, and do you really agree that so many meetings sometimes do not really make it a whole productive business?
So first of all, thanks to India Today for setting this up and giving the stage for us. And Arun, call you Arun? Yeah. So Arun's point is what I agree with. One of the companies I worked for was KLA Tencor, and so we had operations in 18 countries. So India, of course, and then California, entire Asia thing up till Japan, right? And then Israel was also there. But you'd be, it's a top proper technology product company helping chip makers. So our customers were Samsung, Intel, TSMC, anybody who makes chips. Right? But then you'd be surprised at the same issue that Arun brought up. We created a program called Effective Meetings at KLA Tencor. So the first part of that, and this was a course that we created, a 2.5, 3-hour course. The first part of the course was, what are all the reasons on why you should actually deny a meeting request? And in India, it is Aditi Devo Bhava. So you get a meeting request, 99 out of 100 times you accept it. And I call my team and I tell, I won't have any respect for you when you accept a meeting like that. Always ask, what am I going to do? Am I just going to share an Excel sheet? What is in it for me? What is in it for them? And if there's some inputs, I'll give it and I'll excuse myself out. Because the most important component of our lives is never money, it's always time. With time you can make money, with money you can never make time. Right? There's no rewind button for that. And as a company, it becomes even more important saying if you have 20 people in a meeting or 5 people in a meeting, there's a lot of money on the table. A huge amount of money. Right? And there is also opportunity cost. People only think about the salary time. I'm saying if they were doing something else, they're earning money. So that's my take on productivity and meetings. And I always think that, sometimes informal meetings are more productive than formal ones. It just brings the best out of people. Because in formal meetings, people are generally wound up, tied up. They think, what's the agenda? Intent versus content kind of thing.
Yeah, that's excellent. I think so many organizations are moving into this office, open office concept, and the CEO also is part of the workforce. I mean, it's very difficult to implement in traditional organizations, but I think that trend is also catching up, and ideas are exchanged in very informal manner sometimes, and it works. Let me bring in a perspective from Mr. Padmakumar, who works with Saint Gobain. So some of the challenges in your area when it comes to productivity, and some of the emerging trends that you are, as a HR professional, you're observing in this area.
Thank you. Thank you, Arun. Thank you, Satyabama, for bringing this topic of future of work. I think you are in a way taking the baton from the G20 summit on the future of work and future of skills. I have two hats. One is on the Saint Gobain, and I also chair the people and skills track for the Southern Region CII, where this partnership is very important with the academia, what we are working out. So coming to my Saint Gobain as a company, we are an old company, 359 years old, a very strong heritage. We would become the world leader in light and sustainable construction. And the context is 70% of the buildings in India for 2030 is yet to be built. And that's the opportunity which is lying. So we have both the manufacturing and also the field or the customer end. So when you look at productivity, I look at it in 5 stages. One is those productivity at the customer end, customer facing roles, those in the supply chain roles, those in the operations roles, which are factories, support functions, and also research. So the challenges in all these are very different. In the customer facing roles, but one of the thread which cut across all these sectors are the technical competency. So what we try to do is to make the first time right approach when they go, for which we ensure that there is adequate subject matter knowledge which that person has. And this is a very important attribute for us. And so we continuously engage with the academia, even at the passing out stage with the MBA students who would be coming into this world of work, and prepare them what exactly they need to do. Even when it comes to operation where we have the large workforce, many areas are all process industry, be it glass or gypsum or refractories and others. So there is a time pressure where the person has to really contribute, and there is, if it is a conveyor, because the conveyor will not slow down. So there is a preparation which goes in, for which it is backed up or an upstream with a skill center, and there is a lot of skills which are actually put in. The work is made modular in nature, so that the current generation is actually looking at how do I pick it up in a very short span of time and then contribute. The biggest challenge which we would see is in the support functions, be it HR, IT, finance, and others. And there we continuously work on personal productivity through this Leadership Management International, which actually brings in a lot of tools for them to practice. It is not mandated, and in Saint Gobain as a company, it's a very highly empowered company. We do not really trust on any goals, etc., but we make them take very aspirational goals and work on. When it comes to research, there is a stage gate approach which we actually follow, so that the thoughts and ideas and innovations are channelized rather than it is getting scattered. So there are fundamental things which are actually put in place to ensure that the innovation and creativity is not really missed out, but the productivity is still there. Thank you.
Okay. So I would like to come back to Mr. Balaji as to, how do you really measure, productivity? We have heard a round of, observations from all the panelists, and we know how varied it is and the challenges in each of these businesses. What is the, proper metrics that one would use? And are there any evolving, measurement areas that we are seeing in the businesses?
Mr. Arun, I think the point is it will be very industry, company specific metrics, right? You can't have a generic global kind of a metrics. Of course, there are global metrics which are basically financial metrics are there. But I think we need to look at, metrics, for example, sales force efficiency could be one, pipeline efficiency could be another. And speaking about the sector that I come from, there are fairly very detailed metrics. For example, binning efficiency, warehouse capacity efficiency, turnaround, throughput, and so on and so forth. For example, we kind of measure very closely the time taken for the trucks to kind of move from one part to another. That's a measure of our productivity. We have a mechanism, a control tower, which kind of monitors 24/7 using cameras and all kinds of sensors. What's happening in our operations on about 175, 180 locations in the country? What's happening to those 3,000 trucks which are kind of plying at any part of the time? And anything, a deviation, if let's say a truck is getting delayed by about 30 minutes, or if the driver is deviating from the set route by 20 kilometers, we know what's happening. So somebody from our control tower will call and find out why are you deviating. I'm just kind of giving you an instance. So I think the point is there is obviously financial metrics can be global. Global meaning omnibus, but I think it has to be seen from a specific company industry context, because what is relevant for a financial services investment banking may not be relevant for a process industry product. So you have to examine from a industry specific, company specific context.
And within the company itself, there would be, and within departments, there would be a different kind of things that you work on.
Within each departments, how finance measures productivity would be very different from, for example, an HR measures productivity. So you obviously, like I said, it can't be one size fits all approach. It has to be very company specific, industry specific, department specific approach is how I would look at productivity measure.
Mr. George, you would like to add to that?
In terms of metrics, we do have, of course, functional and metrics. You would have manufacturing sales metrics. But one overarching metric we would use is human capital value added. Basically, that is revenue minus operating expenses minus capital charge divided by the number of employees. So whichever group, it's small, big, this is one metric we use. But I also want to add one more thing. It's linked to the earlier quick discussion on the number of hours also. So for me, in terms of one of the important metrics I was managing one business which we were selling products to farmers. And one of the things which I found was that farmers tend to buy or listen more, and actually their sales conversion is much higher when you meet them at the field and not when you meet them at this thing. And the farmers go to the field early morning. So from 6 to 8 or 9 in the morning before the sun really gets up, that's when they really do. And when you go and meet them in the village in the 9, 10 o'clock or let's say noon or whatever it is, the conversion ratios are lesser. They are talking about something else. They are not so attentive to you. So for me, productivity meant the number of hours my guys met them during that morning in the field. Okay, so that for me is the productive this thing. I don't care if he spend those 3 hours effectively. I don't care. The rest of the day you can go and see a matinee show. I don't care. But this was very, very important for me. So productivity is also contextual in terms of what is required, what the customer requires, and what the organization requires. Okay, so if you focus on that, on the right kind of areas that the people should be focusing on, the right kind of areas they should be focusing on, then the productivity improves dramatically.
I'm sure your employees weren't too happy that you sent them out to the field at 6 o'clock in the mornings. But I'm glad that finally you would have sort of given them good appraisals because you are the person who set the productivity metrics. Customers were happy and the products were sold. So that's great. Mr. Bharathan, what are some of your observations on this? How do you measure the metric, especially when you deal with clients, especially overseas clients, etc.?
Yeah, very simple actually. It's just revenue. That's all. I keep telling my team, right, the HR team, that you are a HR team, but you are a business team. Everybody is in a business, right? Unfortunately, we forget that.
So revenue is all that matters. As long as you bring
all.
revenue, you are productive.
Top line, bottom line, finished. You can't. Sometimes people think, I'm being ruthless in my own team, but I say, see, you're very clear, right? In life, things are black and white. You want to paint gray, that's your choice. And then you want to live in that gray world, again, it's your choice. Sometimes I see HR people talking all bullshit, right? They're coming and telling feelings, this thing, at the wrong time. See, when somebody is being fired, feelings very important. Empathy is important and all of that. But when you enter an organization, you understand you enter a money-making machine. That organization is greedy. It exists only for making profit. That is what they teach in commerce. Somewhere when you do that HR MBA and all that, you get twisted ideas. That's why you need to understand where the human stops and where the resources begin, and where the resources stop and where the human begin. So I keep telling people, so in the organization, for example, I don't believe in skill development. I believe in capability development. Because skill development is putting 50 people in a room and training them on Java or Golang or the next hot technology. Capability development is how many people can come and cut code. So what we did is we started stopping approving trainings. So we said we will have 2 kinds of qualification before somebody, 3 kinds of qualification because somebody is sent for a training program. One, there is something we call practice in technology. So the practice leader has to say, this technology is important for the company. Good. Then the HR talent management person comes and says, it's worth investing in this individual. If this person is not worth investing in, don't go for it. It's waste of time and money. Then we have a business qualification that happens saying, if all of this happens, in 100 days, I can actually build this person on this technology. After that only we do. See, 99.9% in the IT industry, okay, other industries I don't know, in tech industry, the reverse happens. You put 50 people in a training and then CEO kind of shakes the head of the HR guy and says, where's your ROI? I said, you put yourself in that situation, CEO will ask you that question. But if you had thought business first, then you are talking the CEO's language. But that's what every CEO wants, right? They want every individual to talk business in the company. Because we are not an NGO, very simple. So you've got to come with that approach. When you come with that approach, then it's very simple. You're making logical statements, and just like Arun said, right? If they are there, and we had some situations where people said this after March 25th, 2020, you had all sorts of trust issues. Whether the guy is sitting in somewhere else, in friend's house. I said, how does it matter? Are the goals smart? Is the person doing what is required to do? I don't care if they're sitting in pajamas and doing it, or where they are doing it, how they are doing it. It doesn't matter. Right? And there is the other case where somebody comes in at 7:30 in the morning and people are saying you should give them a point for that. I said, I don't care. You come at 8 o'clock in the morning, you go at 10 p.m. in the night. I really don't care. What I really care is, can you work with other people really well? Can you solve difficult problems? And do you really know what the customer really wants? Right? And are you there to solve it when we need it?
I think you are one of those dream bosses, that a lot of youngsters would look up to, in the sense, you, as long as you produce and your productivity is intact, I don't care where you work from. I mean, that is a very important, and that was a big topic we discussed at length in our first, round of HR Insight we had in Bangalore, where, this big debate of work from home versus working from office came up. And it's a crucial topic. I think we should touch upon that also in due course. But I'm glad you brought up this point also. Now let me come to Mr. Padmakumar. What are some of the materials that you use? Because you're a large organization and with huge legacy, and probably manufacturing units across the world, and so much of intercontinental operations.
So it's like this, in operations or manufacturing operations, it's like many of the jobs are very well-defined jobs. So it's like a football match. So every minute, every second is important, and they see that there is a purpose, there is a goal which they need to achieve. So the entire team is working towards that goal, and the purpose is very well defined. So it's like every shift is like a match. When it comes to the customer-facing roles, typically I will give you an example of glass. You would have seen large buildings, and what we focus is on a gross commercial margin from each of these people, because we have a variety of glass to sell. We have a glass which could be at 20 rupee a square feet. We have another glass which is 20,000 per square feet. So and the influencers or the people who buy or people who recommend these glasses are very different. So these people gain those competencies and then work towards it. But typically, they have an opportunity to sell a low value glass, but they have an opportunity to learn and also sell a high value glass. So the commercial gross margin per zone, per person actually makes it.
And how does the parent company view the productivity of the staff in India?
Oh, it's very important. I think it's a very right question, because in many of the European countries, the cost of labor is very high. And here the cost of labor is not very high, but we also focus on creating some employment so that it is not completely automated. For example, if we invest another 20 crore or 40 crore, we can actually wipe out another 100 people. But I don't think, given the cost of labor and the opportunity which we could provide for employment generation, we wanted to do that. So typically when they look at certain productivity parameters with regard to people, we may not be as highly competitive like an European country. But if we look at the efficiencies in many other areas, we may be at par or certainly higher or better than other countries.
Okay. So that brings us to a question on the employee productivity and the balance that you need to bring about the employee well-being and job satisfaction, which is also one of those topics of debate. In fact, I remember that K.V. Kamath, the former chairman of ICICI Bank, has famously said that before work-life balance, you need to first get a life, and then we can think of. So that means that, you need to probably build a career first and then you can think. I mean, that is his views. Maybe I can check out Mr. Balaji as to, what are his thoughts on this front, because you have also had this huge experience of managing an entire, manpower organization.
I think it's a ongoing debate and a continuous tension, right? At one level, you want everybody to be at the highest levels of productivity, but I think it comes with a cost. This is something to do with the level of stress, right? I think the people talk about eustress, and at one level, there is a fine part. And once you cross it, then it is distress. So the thing is, how do we kind of get that fine balance going? And Arun, I think earlier you talked about this entire work from home debate, which also kind of came up. And I think an industry like us, we could get only 4.5% of our workforce to work from home. The nature of our workforce is only about 5% of our maximum 5% work from home during the peak of pandemic. Because we are an essential service, and many times when people come and ask us, how did you manage, how are you finding it, getting people back from home, we said that's a non-issue for us. We don't even know what is it like. So I think the key would be it's a perennial thing about it's a fine balance you need to do, because I think Bharathan made a comment. Organizations are, if I had to use the word, purposive instruments. It is that organizations are there to make profits, but that is okay. But I think getting that good balance, whether it is in terms of good employee well-being, I think there's a tremendous focus on employee mental health of late. I think pandemic has also brought it up quite sharply. Skill building, training and development. So in a way, people kind of get a package without that boundaries get blurred. I think that's how it's a fine balance. There is not an easy answer. I don't think anybody has found a solution for it, and it is a continuous exploration and journey.
Mr. George, your experiences?
Yeah, we have done a lot of research on employees, and one of the things which we find is that people who enjoy their jobs score significantly higher on work-life balance, even though they spent the same as anybody else. Okay, so we find two people working exactly the same hours, but the people who love their jobs say work-life balance is fine, but the guy who doesn't like it says it's bad. So one of the things we try to work on, and I think we should all do it, is try to make people enjoy work. They should look forward to a Monday morning, okay? And I think business is like a game. I always see it as a game, and make it enjoyable. Okay, so I don't think Sachin Tendulkar ever cribs about coming to practice. Okay, so you got if it's a game, you enjoy it. Make business a game. Make it enjoyable. Make it fun. And that's when in a game people make mistakes. What happens when you drop a catch? Nobody comes and pulls him up, shouts at him, anything. They just say, just carry on. And that's how, if that's the culture we have, where we don't say this guy is accountable, you missed it up, you try and nail him down. But like a game, you dropped a catch, doesn't matter, let's carry on. As a team we go. People would definitely see important. One. Second, I think, is in terms of employee wellness. I think we need to focus a lot on employee wellness, both physical wellness and mental wellness. People go through a lot of stress, and I think we need to support them in terms of various assistance programs, in terms of capability, this thing. I think that's one important area. Third, I think, is employee recognition. Whatever it is, people need to be recognized for little work. In India, people are very conjuice. Managers will think if you give a reward, means that fellow is sar pe chad jayega. He will be on my head. He will not listen to me. In future, I think that's a very outdated concept. We must be generous in our recognition. So we must have good recognition programs where people get recognized periodically for whatever little small things they do. I think some of these things will help, in my view.
I think that's great. I think we are all curious to hear from Mr. Bharathan what he thinks about this.
No, actually, Arun answered for the entire gang, right? And rightfully so, we saw the reaction from the audience. The reason I'm saying that is this particular question, it came up as a problem for us in our Singapore office. I was in Singapore working for KLA at that time. We had a manufacturing setup and a software setup, both tech, hard tech and soft tech, right? And they brought up this thing and they said, they call me BP at work. So it's easy for Americans to say that way. And they say, BP, can you come up with a solution? We have a serious work-life balance issue here. And then I went and then I said, you don't need actually any workshop. And then they went crazy. They looked at me and said, are you sure? I said, yep. And they asked me why. I said, because I don't believe in work-life balance. And they looked at me, you're an HR guy, how can you say that? I said, I really don't believe in it. Because like Arun said, you can do like stuff for 18 hours, 19 hours, and you might be enjoying it. Just look at the cricket teams, right? Sometimes when they play back to back, have you ever seen them like saying, I want to take up this thing and all of that? It's so physical and all. And Kapil Dev also said that in an interview. And those days they never had so many side prop people helping with this coach, that coach and all that. So same thing, right? But then we went and did a fishbone on that team. I said, it's not that I don't want to do, I don't believe in work-life balance, but I believe in the fishbone, 7-step problem solving. And engineers love it, right? So when we did the fishbone and we went really deep with the fishbone, we found out that most of the people were stagnating in their jobs. So 60% were bored, and that's the research point that Arun was also pointing out. They were bored, and there are a few others who were put pressure when their skill was low. So there's this beautiful book called Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. It's a Russian author. A small book. It's an amazing book, right? The entire book is written on an X versus Y axis. So you have challenge on Y and skill on X axis. And skill and challenge are in perfect balance. You are in a flow state. So that's when a batsman meets a bowler whom he can handle, and then suddenly the batsman looks like he's the greatest batsman in the world. Right? And I keep telling people, it's also the thing that, when you see Roger Federer in peak form or Virat Kohli or Sachin or Dravid or anybody, when you see sportsmen in peak form, it's not that they don't have flaws, they choose not to show. It's the same thing with organizations, right? There are people, their strengths, Marcus Buckingham thing, the strengths thing and the non-strengths thing. You choose to work on people's strengths and they will have fun, like he was saying. So for us in MSIS, my vision for MSIS, which I had said when I had joined, it got published too, is We want to bring the thank God it's Monday thing. I always wondered, why should it be thank God it's Friday? You know, are you being tortured or what? All 5 days. Because the research shows that there are only 2 reasons why people join or leave a company. It's not money at all. Money comes number 5 out of 10 things. The first reason is quality of work, and the second is the quality of the people they work with. Manager is one of them, but manager doesn't cut it. It's the entire gang. So you work with a set of really hot people who want to do better things every day, challenging you, and like you said, you know, pick you up when you're falling down and all of that, and you're rolling together. You want to be there all the time. So I think that's it.
That's a great point. In fact, this thank God it's a Monday. It's a very interesting phrase. We all look to Monday with a little bit of dread and wariness. I remember, encountering this in one of the large private equity firms, where the CEO provides home cooked food, lunch, to all employees in her office on Mondays. And it's only on Mondays she does it, because there's a scramble to get to office on Monday and all that. And so this is Multiples, which run by Renuka Ramnath. And I think it probably works, because you can see a whole lot of status. And I happen to be there on a Monday. It's Saint Gobain, are there some of these fun things that you do to, of course, manufacturing is a dry business slightly, but
we also thought as much. When we looked at some of our data, where we had more than 60 people, or I think in Saint-Gobain, India, it's about 85 people who have left us and have come back. And I do both the exit interviews and in most of the cases, and also the recruitment. So I was keen to know, why are they wanting to come back? They have got, some of them, 40% increase in compensation, and we have a simple policy. Had they continued in our company, what is it they would have got is what we don't mark it up. We find that it has a larger context of culture. And one of the elements of culture, when we examine through the Great Hofstede model, was masculinity. Many of the Indian companies were very masculine in nature, and we started focusing on improving our diversity and then bringing in more feminine characteristics of multi-skilling, tolerance, accepting mistakes, and flexibility. And we found that there is a huge change in acceptance. I think we are in the way evolving, and we find it is more work and life integration more than the work-life balance which matters. In fact, I agree with many of the panelists. When we provide them a purpose, they bring out their passion, and they see a larger context to work and get associated. This is what we are actually experiencing in our company.
Great. In fact, even our panel is a little too masculine. I mean, the next panel, of course, going to have better representation. My final question, because we don't have much time left, is on technology and how it is disrupting a lot of things, and maybe its role to play in measuring productivity, in enhancing the workforce productivity, etc., etc. So maybe we should dwell on that as a final round. I think each of you can sort of chip in and say.
So extensive, in the sector that I come from, extensive deployment of technology. Like I said, whether it is drone, artificial intelligence, smart cameras, and control centers and all of those things. Very extensive use of technology, and it is, it is essential backbone of the business. But like I said in life, everything is a mixed blessing. You have to be careful about how do you want to use the technology. I kind of started earlier in my opening comments about the privacy and all of those things. So I think I look at it as a technology is a great tool, but has to be handled carefully. I think that's how I would think, because in the interest of time, we may not be able to dwell on it, but we integrate technology very well. We kind of ensure that the balance is achieved. I think that's how I think about it.
Some tool specific you would like to mention?
Yes. So in retail business, we have a lot of analysis. So if you buy a tennis racket, you're likely to buy a tennis shoe. So you're likely to buy that. So we have a lot of analysis. But some are completely not, can't even make sense out of it. For example, one of the research, they found out that there's a correlation between beer and babies' nappies. Okay, and they could not figure it out why, but some set of people, what they did was, they put these two together and boom, the sales went up. Okay, people still haven't even figured it out why, but it's happening. Okay, and same thing I did in my retail business. Customers leave. So we don't know when customers leave. And when they leave, it's too late too. The cost of getting back is very high. So we put an AI-based this thing of indicating when the customer is likely to leave. So and that was done with, of course, the stated metrics were there. But apart from that, the AI engine would go and see what are the different patterns of it happening and when is the customer therefore likely to leave. And that is what enabled our employees to target those customers well in advance. Some of the customers, probably even before they thought of leaving, people were able to touch that. And that's the power of AI, and that's the collaborative thing we require between AI and human beings. The ability to get that customer back, no AI can do. Only a human being can do. That's a skill only a human being has. So AI can never substitute human beings, and AI can only, if you look at it as a collaborator tool, it works well. If you look at it as a substitute tool, it will never work well. So, and when AI works along with human beings and along human skills are complemented with AI, it works well. So that's the power. I think all the technology in the world can't substitute a human being. Human skills are irreplaceable. The way one human being connects with the other, no AI can ever do that. I've seen human beings do that. So I think if they connect, it works well.
That's a lot reassuring. We all get to keep our jobs. Mr. Bharathan?
So I've worked in tech companies all my life. Seen the time when people were afraid that they lose jobs because the computer came in. And look what happened, right? So I think technology is a great enabler. But my greatest takeaway has always been from one of the people I've admired a lot. He's not alive, Steve Jobs. And then Jonathan Ive, Sir Jonathan Ive, who's the head of design at Apple. He left Apple after Steve Jobs passed away a few years later. So Steve Jobs was asked a question once in a meeting like this, but on a one-on-one. He was asked saying that Apple is not adapting to technology as well as its competition. Can you imagine that? That was a real statement based on data asked to Steve Jobs. And his answer was, technology doesn't do anything. He said, just because if the technology is there, we're going to go and use it. Apple doesn't work that way. We don't go and ask a set of brilliant engineers what kind of product we should make. We look at the current customer experience that is there in the world. And then we say, how can this experience be elevated to another level? And then we marry that to technology. Right? And I think that's what at MSIS also we are trying to do. Anything that we make, even internally, it's a bot or it's an app. How can it be extremely simplistic? Because, simplification is one of the most difficult things to do. It's a quote by Jonathan Ive, so I'm robbing it. But that's the most difficult thing to do. And so how do you make it simple? Because if you look at human beings today, we don't want to touch many things. We've come to shorts now, 30-second videos, right? We are all goldfishes, right? And so it should enable. So what do we want? Like earlier we were all in Facebook, right? Facebook is very difficult. It's like an online photo album, which you have to maintain. When WhatsApp came, we predicted long back that WhatsApp could replace Facebook. And then Mark Zuckerberg was very smart in buying it out because it mimics what the human being needs, right? We want to be in the moment. We don't want to be somewhere else. So now I see the photo, I push it off. I don't have to maintain it now. And then I have disappearing messages and stuff like that. So my thing is, yes, technology is there. It's an enabler. But you got to come from the other way, from the customer experience. Then it makes sense.
Great, Mr. Padmakumar.
Yeah, we are very highly connected factories. And what we find, and we also run programs where we convert some of the farm labor of yesterday to an industrial worker through short-term training program and make them work in this connected factory. See, one of the things which we do is eventually it's an emotion of fear and anger which we try to remove and make it more comfortable and happy. I think that is what is working. When we ran a program, or we are running a Learn Why Learn program where we bring in children who had passed 10th standard and 18 years of age, we train them in our factory as a workplace learning. The number of suggestions which they are bringing in an MNC, which is a connected factory, is significantly higher. And they're all first time into the exposure of the factories and others. So there is a lot of appetite which is there in the rural India. And today when you are saying this future of work is actually there in rural India, rural Tamil Nadu, our Industry 4.0 center has many people, I think more than 45 people who have come from very Tier 3, Tier 4 engineering colleges. But they are becoming full stack developers in no time. I think their ability to adopt technology with ease is very high. They may not be able to articulate, that's different. But as long as performing the jobs, and then on the job they actually do various LinkedIn learning programs and then develop themselves. So there is something which is very different from our generation which is happening in adopting technology.
Excellent. So with that, we have come to the end of this session. We hope it was quite an interesting one and informative too. Thank you all the speakers, and a big round of applause to the gentlemen out here.